Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Member Hurley?
Here.
Member Young? Here. Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Here.
Member Dashiell?
Here.
Chair Lowry?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Thursday, September 4th, 2025 Historic Preservation Board meeting. Before we get to the approval of the agenda, do you want to swear in witnesses at this point? And what that is, folks that might give information here, we're supposed to swear you in to make sure that, you know, you're telling us the truth. So if anybody is planning on speaking today, and let me talk about that for a second. If you're here to speak in general about things, we'll do that in a minute. If you want to speak about a particular item that's on the agenda, you can wait and speak at that point. So with that being said, anyone who plans to give information or give testimony, please stand, and Madam Clerk, could you put them under oath?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you're about to give to the board is truthful? Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Before we get to the approval of the agenda, does anybody have any items they'd like to add to the agenda?
I'd like to add a discussion item for Gulf Beach's Historic Museum update.
That reminds me that everyone should turn off their phone, including myself. Okay. So what was that again? Discussion item for what?
Discussion item F for Gulf Beach's Historic Museum.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to add to the agenda?
If staff could add an item about road closures.
About what? Brandon, I'm sorry.
Road closures.
Road closures, okay. Okay, we'll make that 5G. Okay. With that being said, I would make a motion to approve the agenda as written and added to.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next, this is that point a minute ago I talked about if you have a general comment you'd like to make about something involving the historic board or the city, which isn't particularly addressed in the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to comment on at this point? Okay, seeing no comments, we'll go to item 3, approval of minutes. And that would be for the last two, I believe. That would be for the July and August board minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 1st, 2025.
I would second. Go ahead.
I'll second that.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Approved.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, I think we have to talk about the August 21st minutes. Has anybody had an opportunity to look at that?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 21st, 2025.
All right, I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, now we will take us to number 4, which is the action items. 4A is a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of 110 4th Avenue, which is case number 25091. Mr. Barry, do you have that?
Yes, I do. If we could pull up the PowerPoint. And for these first 3 cases in particular, thank you very much to the applicants. I know you've been patient with getting these items on the agenda. So I believe we have Susan Hatton present for Richard Hatton and Janice Davis. Hey there, she's here. They are requesting a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of a single-family residence and garage. They're both contributing resources. The primary residence was also designated as Local Historic Resource 16 back in the 1990s. You can see a photo of the residence on the left-hand side from 2015 in the center, and then the structure on the right, obviously showing extensive damage post-Helene and Milton. Here were some other photos submitted by the applicant. We have criteria for the issuance of a demolition permit. It has not been the board's policy post-storm to require stays, but in the case that you wish to do so, you would be eligible to impose up to a 90-day stay on the residence because it is on the local registry. Staff did review these criteria due to what is clearly significant damage that exceeds what staff finds to be a reasonable threshold to require repair. We are recommending approval without a stay. The property could be redeveloped with a similar use and arrangement to what is currently on the property. And the owner is present.
Okay, before we get to the owner for a second, I have a question, Mr. Berry. I know you put this on all the staff reports where it talks about the potential changes that may occur down on Pastor Grill. And the size of this lot, they couldn't build to the underlying zone anyway, could they?
No, they couldn't. It is based on lot size, and they would be limited regardless, but just a general note for any of these applications.
I just wanted to make sure that I had clarification. I understand why we want to include those, but in this particular case, it would have to be built under the overlay regardless.
Yes.
Because of the size of the lot, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Ma'am, would you like to speak?
If you have any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we made out the application and
Okay.
we're sorry to see it go.
Yep.
Hate like hell to see it go, but there's really no choice.
Could you just state your name for the record, please?
Susan Hatton?
And Ms. Hatton, do you already have plans for a new structure?
No, we are going to sell the lot.
Okay, all right. I was just going to say, if you did, obviously at some point we might be interested in seeing those, but I would also encourage you, if you were going to put plans, to get with the city and the historic, get our recommendations perhaps, or our suggestions before you made plans. Because so many people have already got new designs before they even come and find out what's up. So, all right, I appreciate it, ma'am. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Hatton?
So sorry for your loss.
Yes, yeah. It's only been 110 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anybody have a motion?
I'll make go ahead, Sean.
Make a motion for the certificate of appropriateness for demolition number 25091 110 4th Avenue.
I'll second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Hurley,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkins-Smith,
Yes.
Member Dashiell,
Yes.
Chair Lowry,
Yes.
motion carries.
And also, I think we probably should have put in that motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, yes, without a stay. So you can demolish it at your
You're all in
pleasure.
agreement? Yes,
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
Pleasure may not be the right word. Okay, 4B is a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of 108 22nd Avenue, which is case number 25092.
Also Susan Hatton's property for Richard Hatton. The applicant's requesting a certificate of appropriateness. This is not a locally designated structure. It is a contributing resource, single-family home. You can see on the left the photo from the resurvey in 2015, and then on the right with the damage following the hurricanes. Here's some additional photos that were taken by staff. Same criteria as the previous case, but again, the stay would be limited to 30 days should the board wish to impose one. We do ask for just a bit more applicant testimony. Of course, our assessment was back in late 2024, was only looking at the exterior of the structure. In most cases, we did assess the damage to be less than the substantial damage threshold. The applicant has indicated that there was more extensive damage, and they, of course, have their own justification for demolition of the structure. So we just asked for them to speak to that briefly. As I mentioned with the previous case, I don't have any concerns with the use, the arrangement, the density of the property. They would be subject to the overlay requirements should they move forward in the future, but they are able to redevelop a single-family home on the property. So that being said, pending that applicant testimony, we do recommend approval of this case without a stay.
Okay, so for the applicant's testimony, what do you wish to inquire of Ms. Hatton and her response?
As I mentioned, the city's substantial damage estimate was under the 50% threshold, but we're not necessarily aware of all the interior conditions or, the current state of the structure. So if you could just speak to that briefly.
The current state of the structure was totally inundated with water. We had about 30 inches, I guess, or something like that. Everything inside was damaged. Everything. We removed the, first foot of the plaster, cabinets, everything in the house. There's nothing left. Toilets, everything. When we looked at it, we thought that it would just be too much to repair. And, we were looking at well, anyway, the electric, to bring it up to code, it's going to be at least $25,000. Replace the walls. Well, it's $20,000 to take them off. Now, I'm sure it's going to be more than $20,000 to put them on. Every door in the place needs to be replaced. I mean, closet doors, in and out. Every door, garage door, landscaping. We'd have to bring the windows up to code. And that, I don't know if you've done windows, but 50,000 is the lowest estimate that I can see.
Well, Ms. Hatton, the reason we're...
You're up to 100,000.
Right, the reason we're really asking this question, it's not so much, we want to make sure you understand, which I'm sure you do, but this is for the public as well. If your damage was under 50%, then obviously you could rebuild the house as it was, okay? And that's your option because, as you know, and everybody else I think knows here, is we can't stop a demolition. So you could have a brand new house and you could demolish it if you wanted to, okay? But we want to make sure you know that you had the option or have the option to repair it as it is. And of course, was historically designated, you could probably even get around the 50% rule, all right? So as long as you're good with that, it's not so much important to us, how much it's going to cost, whatever. Let me ask this question again. Is that also a property you plan on selling, or are you going to rebuild there as well? Okay.
And we're, okay, we've collected on our insurance once. The second storm, we'll collect, again, but they'll make us raise it or tear it down. So, and I just can't see that.
Well, no, it's not, I mean, we're not here.
It's not financially.
Right. And understand that, part of what we're doing here is we have our duty, I suppose, as the historic board is try to preserve the historic structures if we can. We realize there's oftentimes going to be issues, but we want to make sure that the people that are making decisions are fully informed as what they can and cannot do. So sounds like you know what's going on. Okay.
I'm 75 years old. My brother is younger, but we're just getting up there in years and just can't see.
Sure.
Spending all that time and money.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, but I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for demolition number 25092 for 108 22nd Avenue without a stay.
I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for all the work you did too. I mean, the staff did a lot of work after we made our report. We filled out all that stuff, but they did a lot of work, and I think that they deserve some credit for that. And thanks for being on the board too.
Thank you.
The historic stuff, it is important. And we wish we could keep our houses.
Well, we only hope the people who buy your lot agree and they want to build something that fits into the neighborhood, so.
I will make sure that I say that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you, Ms. Hadden.
Yeah.
I'll let them know.
Thank
for
you.
sure. 'Cause, yeah, we love St. Pete Beach, but we don't want hurricanes. So, anyway, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Okay, now we move on to 4C, which is Certificate of Appropriateness, case number 25076 for the Floodplain Management Regulation, FEMA, variance number 25077 for 3110 Paso Girl Way. Hey,
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, board members. Gil Martinez, Senior Planner with Community Development. Before you today is a request for a certificate of appropriateness as well as a FEMA variance. That would be for case numbers 25076 and 25077, located at 3110 Paso Grill Way. The applicant owner, Paul Sierra and Leslie Van Trump, on behalf of Adrian Timmel and Alexander Engelman, are requesting a certificate of appropriateness and FEMA variance to the floodplain management regulations for the renovation and expansion of the kitchen area on the contributing cottage outbuilding by less than 70 square feet for a locally designated property at 3110 Paso Grill Way. Here is a zoning map illustrating the zoning and the location. An aerial of the property.
can I ask you a question here, just while you're here, Mr. Martinez? So this is a secondary structure, an outbuilding they're wanting to do the remodeling on, is that right?
That is correct.
And so in this aerial picture, I actually drove by there today, but I couldn't see around the fence. The structure is the one on the alley, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I apologize because I believe this aerial picture is capturing two separate properties, and it's actually property number 3 that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, on our one that's on our website here, it's a pretty clear picture.
Okay.
So you can see that one much easier. Thank you.
It's your record. Here is obviously our public hearing posting. General photographs of the exterior of the property itself. Here's where you start getting some visuals of the area in question, the renovation area, the cottage in the back towards the alley. These are current conditions that were provided by the applicant in their backup. This is a slide speaking to the scope of work for the certificate of appropriateness. It speaks to the scope of work both for the exterior and the interior of the cottage remodeling. The intent of the request is to expand the kitchen area by less than 70 square feet, convert the 2-bedroom windows to French door facing the patio, and elevate the flat portion of the roof to match the elevation of the peak gable portion. To the left, you would see the existing floor plan. To the right, you would see the proposed floor plan. You can see how it's been closed off by approximately 70 feet. Some orthographic views of the structure.
So this addition is extending out into the east side yard space, right? Not going out into the side yard or going out onto the alley side,
Correct.
just in the east side yard space. Okay.
That is correct, yes. The criteria for the issuance of the certificate of appropriateness shall be consistent with the U.S. Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, sections 36 and 37. But what I just found out is Code of Federal Regulations. The requested certificate of appropriateness is consistent with section 28.8 and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. The proposed work retains the historic character and the materials in such a manner that it preserves the distinctive features and finishes, minimizes changes to defining characteristics, repairs rather than replaces historic elements, uses gentle cleaning methods, protects archaeological resources, ensures new work is compatible yet distinguishable, and maintains the integrity if future removal is needed. Variance from floodplain regulations, case 25707. So variance from the floodplain management regulation is being sought to renovate 3110 Pass-a-Grille Way, as listed and described in the staff report. The estimated cost of the renovation is $75,000, which exceeds the substantial improvement value of $15,630 allowed by FEMA and by way of Pinellas County property appraiser's valuation.
So currently, this structure is valued at just over 30,000, is that correct?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head what the actual value of that structure is. I know for a fact
The
that
substantial improvement value of 15,630, I'm assuming that's the 50%.
that is the
number.
50%. So one can assume that it's 30,000. I just don't have the numbers in front of me right now to make a complete statement on that. Staff finds that the requested FEMA floodplain variance is consistent with the criteria in section 2816. The request applies to a historic structure designated by the city, meets National Register or State Historic Places listing requirements, ensures the structure's continued historic designation, is the minimum necessary to preserve the original structure's historic character. Staff finds that the proposed certificate of appropriateness and FEMA variance are consistent with the city's St. Pete Beach Land Development Code. The work is minimal, historically appropriate, and maintains the character of the contributing structure. Staff recommends approval of the proposed certificate of appropriateness, case 25076, and the FEMA variance, case number 25077, from the floodplain management regulations. Staff recommends the following actions. A motion to approve the requested certificate of appropriateness, case 25076, as proposed and outlined in the scope as described in the staff report. And a motion to approve the requested FEMA variance, case 25077, from the floodplain regulations for the property at 3110 Pass-a-Grille Way to allow for the scope of work as proposed in the application and outlined in the staff report. I'm available to take any questions you may have, and I'm not certain if the applicant or the owners are here, but if they are, I'm sure they could answer any questions you may have as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Martinez?
I have one question. This was or is on the local register.
That is my understanding, yes.
Are both structures on the register referenced on that designation? Okay.
Ma'am, could you just, ma'am, could you please just state your name for the record and come on up so we know? Yeah, please. Thank you. We have to do things officially here, right? Yeah.
I'm Adrienne Timmel. I own the home with my husband, Alex. When we first started this process, yes, we know that the value is low of the house, but the value is very high to us because that's where grandparents stay. We have a family with 4 boys, and they tend to stay in that cottage when we go out to the beach, and they can, you know, drink their coffee in peace in the morning, and we just want to do a modest expansion. We also got hit by the hurricane in Tampa, so the idea of demoing this modest accessory structure that is highly functional for us and dealing with another full-blown project rather than a modest enhancement, that just wasn't palatable. So we're going to go with, we would like to do a modest enhancement in keeping with the craftsman style of Pass-a-Grille. When we first looked into this, because of the substantial damage, we did confirm with a lovely woman who worked with the board in here. I'm forgetting her name. This was a while back. But yes, the accessory structure is also on the listing. I think it's number 60 or something like that.
It is.
I think you have a plaque on the front cottage,
Yes, we
don't
do.
you? Yeah, I know. One of those original plaques. So cute.
So yeah, they both are.
Glad you're saving it.
Yes.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, I was, before we have a motion or whatever, this is what we really want to do.
Oh.
You know, this is, we have to grant demolitions, et cetera, but we love when people try to retain the homes and take advantage of the historic aspect and get around some of the FEMA regulations.
Yeah, we're pleased to be able to do it, and I will say in Tampa, the Preservation Board is not quite as flexible and a little difficult of a process, so this has been a much smoother, friendlier process.
We're trying to make it
Yeah,
worse.
that
but,
makes preservation doable. And I mean, in other areas, it's not as doable. People really shy away from those homes because of the burdens and the high bar. And I mean, I think that anything here in Paso Roble, everyone understands the character here and what we're trying to maintain, so.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I think a lot of the new people don't.
Oh.
And that's the problem, especially after the storm, we're getting so many demolitions and,
Yeah.
you know, some of the
Or
new
on this
places.
agenda item,
Yes,
or on this,
and so that's why I say we really appreciate when people do exactly what you're doing.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for this lady? Okay. Anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All righty.
I'll move to approve certificate of appropriateness for case number 25076 and floodplain management regulation FEMA variance number 25077 for the property at 3110 Paso Roble Way.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith,
Yes.
Member Dashiell,
Yes.
Member Hurley,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Chair Lowry.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving along. 4D is a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, case number, of the residence at 2505 Paso Roble Way, which is case number 25110. Mr. Barry?
Thank you, Chair. And this is a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of a single-family residence. This is a contributing resource. It is not on our local historic registry. You can see some photos here on the left from the 2015 resurvey where it was determined a contributing resource. On the right, the residence in 2023, obviously pre-storm. Here's some photos of the site post-hurricane. The banyan is still at the front of the site. With this residence in particular, I do just want to point out this is one of the homes with the rough sawn wood siding, which is a fairly unique feature, at least in Pinellas County, for homes. And also the addition to the back of the structure. I don't have a date on that. It's fairly hard to see through these photos, except in the right photo, looking from the back of the property. That is a upper level addition as well as a rooftop deck. I do think it was very well designed. I just wanted to comment on that. It's fairly well hidden from the street through, by the gable. Of course, there was more vegetation in place, I believe pre-storm. But that is what I feel to be a very, very context-sensitive addition, and something that I feel that was very well done at the time. So, with that being said, this is eligible for a stay of up to 30 days, subject to the same criteria as the other cases. Our assessment, which again was only for the exterior of the structure, found the damage to only be 24%. Again, this was close to a year ago now. The applicant had referenced damage to the foundation, which again, the photos mostly supported the interior damage to the structure, so that might be something they want to speak to. We did not perform an interior inspection to my knowledge. This is another structure where they are currently undersized for the zoning district, so they would need to build to the overlay regardless, but if they do move forward after the overlay amendments are adopted, they would need to follow the additional requirements that we've been working through over the last few years. So that being said, we just do ask for applicant testimony on the damage to the foundation. Should they provide adequate testimony, we do ask for a motion to approve this case without a stay on demolition.
Mr. Brady, before we get to that moment, I just have a question just for clarification or my own edification. What's the size lot that needs to be necessary for the underlying zone?
So south of 21st, it's typically 44 feet in width and 4,400 square feet in area. North of there, it's usually 6,000 square feet and 60 feet in width. There is a little bit of variance to that, but that's standard.
So this is like at 57 times 98 feet, so that's just kind of right under where they need to be.
Just under, yep.
Okay, appreciate that for future use. Okay, is anybody, the applicants here, anybody want to speak on this? Yes, sir, come forward.
My name is Michael Julian. I'll be designing the house. The owner and contractor have asked me to come since they've both been out of town, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. The client is, the reason that they're wanting to demolish a house, other than the fact of the damage, and there is extensive damage inside the house. The house is a frame structure, and so all the frame is, absorbed water, and there's rot inside, and the family has, the client has a larger family, and they would like to be able to accommodate them when they come to the house. If you look at the street, you'll see that there's very little parking in front of the house because the house is very close to the street, so they would like to set the house back in harmony with other houses that are along Paso Gro Way, and of course they want to build a house that's appropriate to the area. It's a very eclectic area, although which is very interesting, but but we also want to be able to be sensitive to the design features of the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay. Is that enough as far as what you need for, okay.
It is.
Yeah, what was your last name, Julian? Is that?
Julian, Julian.
Thank you, sir. And have you done your, made plans for this house yet, architectural
We've
plans?
started preliminaries. The problem is we cannot get in, because of the house being there, we cannot get in to do soils tests in
Okay.
the back of the house. We have to remove the house to be able to do that, and we're assuming, of course, it's going to be pilings. So we don't have any doubt about that. But we are looking at a 3-story structure, 2 stories of living over garage and storage underneath.
Okay. And of course, one of the things we're always concerned about is you've kind of referred to it, but the architectural aesthetic to make sure it fits in with the rest of what we have on Paso Gro, which is very eclectic, but I think if you've been down there, which I'm sure you have, you recognize that some of the newer homes don't really fit into the architectural aesthetic, and so we would certainly encourage you to do a plan that would do that.
I've lived on Treasure Island for 39 years, so I've done a lot of structures around. And we did talk to Brandon before we even got started with everything about the
Excellent.
about the setbacks and the aesthetics, and he gave me the information that we need to meet as far as the criteria is concerned.
And this is only, the owners of this property also own the next door lot?
Yes, they do.
Okay, which is a newer house, but
Yes.
a nice house, so
Yes.
that's fine, good. Another question I have, this may sound a little bit odd, but that, first off, personally speaking, I think that's a great house. I'm really sad to see it go. I understand these issues, but those, I guess they're cypress-sided is what they really
Yes.
are, right? There's a few of those on Paso Gro, but they're really unique and really nice. And when and if you demolish this, okay, will you preserve some of that siding? Or, because I know there's people out there that want to do addition to old homes and stuff, and that's very hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I know that. Well, the next door neighbor, the Cecinos, this client, they've already actually given them some of the siding to be able to repair their house.
Yes, excellent, excellent.
So yes, we're sensitive to that, and again, obviously to incorporate that then to a new design, just to find that siding is very difficult right now. But
yeah, it's interesting. Okay, anybody have any questions, Mr. Julian? Okay, thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Brandon, just to be clear again, this is not designated at this point, right?
No, not individually.
All right. Okay, I'll make a motion for certificate of appropriateness for demolition of 2505 Paso Gro Way, which is case number 25110, and without a stay.
I second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith,
Approved.
Member Daschle,
Yes.
Member Hurley,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Chair Lowry,
Yes.
motion carries.
And Mr. Julian, I'd like to thank you again that you've done so much prep work before you came in here that you could answer those questions. I appreciate that. That's what we want to hear. Thank you, sir. Okay, 4E, certificate of appropriateness for demolition of 108 13th Avenue, case number 25116.
Yes, the owners for this case are Jane and Michael Gilbertson, and this is a contributing resource to the Paso Gro Overlay District that they are seeking this demolition request for. You can see here photos of the site on the left from the 2015 resurvey, on the right the residence in 2025. And some more photos of the structure taken by staff. This is a contributing resource eligible for a stay of up to 30 days, subject to the same criteria. In this case, we did find that there was justified extent of damage. Our estimate actually exceeded 100%, so it would cost more to restore than the depreciated value of the structure. We also found that it's not one of the last remaining examples of the frame vernacular style in Paso Grill. It does have that unique siding, but there have been some significant modifications to the home over time that are more contemporary. And as with the other cases, the existing option to develop to the underlying zoning district would be removed in the future, depending on when they plan to come in for new development, if they choose to do so. With that being said, we don't see any reason for a stay or additional applicant testimony unless they wish to do so. We do ask for a motion to approve this case without a stay.
Is there applicant here? Anyone want to speak on this? You can come forward, please.
My name is Michael Gilbertson. I am the owner, along with my wife Jane Gilbertson, of the subject property. And we did go through, different options of, restoring it back to what it was, lifting it and trying to do, what we could, and it just doesn't prove out to be economically feasible at this point. We're sorry to see it go. We nicknamed it the Betty after the previous owner, and
I know Betty.
So we're sorry to see the Betty go.
Right.
Do you have plans in
At this
mind?
time, we're going to clear the site, and we haven't decided whether we'll sell the site or rebuild. It was a rental income for us, a rental property for us, so at this point, we're not clear on that.
Okay. We would, just like we always say, and I think you obviously are familiar with Paso Grill already.
Yes.
So, if you do decide to build yourself, please get the city involved.
We definitely will.
Because, we find a lot of people, I think, that they may have an architect from out of state. They've never even been down to Paso Grill.
Well, I'm an architect from out of state, so.
Yeah.
And you own the adjacent property, right, on
Yes, we
Gulf
do.
Way?
Yes.
It's, I think, a new build by Alvarez, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Unless anybody has any questions? No? All right. Thank you. Okay.
Motion?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for demolition number 25116 at 108 13th Avenue without a stay.
I'll second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we'll move on to 4F, which is a local historic designation for 8345 Boca Ciega Drive, case number 25082.
Good afternoon. Lynn Rossetti, contract planner in historic preservation for the city of St. Pete Beach. This property is a local designation request from Dennis and Sandra Sullivan. This house's Florida Master Site File form was done in 1987 by Gladys Cook, who was the person who surveyed all of Paso Grill back at that same time period. But she had also been tasked with looking around the rest of the island of St. Pete Beach to see if there were other houses that she should be designating and sending Florida Master Site File forms to the state, and this was one of the properties that she selected. This property is located at 8345 Boca Ciega Drive in St. Pete Beach, Florida. It was built, it says circa 1925, and I will let you know that when I worked for the city of St. Petersburg a few decades ago, a lot of properties, if they did not know the exact date, the county would always put 1925. It's believed that this house is older than that. It is located at, like I said, at 8345 Boca Ciega Drive, and its current location, it was put there in 1938. The Pumpkin Shell, which it's called by its owners historically, is one of the oldest houses in the North Beach area of St. Pete Beach. Although the area has not been historically surveyed to date, a field windshield survey located during when we were getting ready to prepare the application for the North Beach survey application, that was one of the ones that we had looked at and felt had potential historic significance. The City of St. Pete Beach recently was notified by the state that a grant has been awarded to go ahead and survey this area in its entirety. In fact, the contract is going to be reviewed by the City Commission on the 22nd of September to do the whole North Beach area. The island of Long Key historically housed 4 townships: Paso Grill, Don Cesar Place, Bella Vista, and St. Petersburg Beach. And Corey, in this particular area in question where the Pumpkin Shell is, was in the North Beach and St. Petersburg Beach area. St. Petersburg Beach was platted in 1919 by William McAdoo on land he acquired from C. Perry Snell and Roy Hanna, both who were St. Petersburg proper developers. And later, those holdings were sold to Nathaniel Upham, who actually developed much of this area. This house, interestingly enough, like I said, it was moved. It was actually moved from the city of St. Petersburg, where it was built in 1925 or earlier. And then what happened is that it was moved, it was trucked over the McAdoo Bridge by somebody to bring this house and other houses over to the city of St. Pete Beach. Actually, it was actually the township of St. Petersburg Beach. And this was done in the 1930s, and it was not put on the current lot where it was. A number of houses were brought over here. I understand that some of them may have been relocated even to Paso Grill and around the whole island of Long Key, which is what St. Petersburg Beach was called back then because it had the 4 municipalities. And so the reason why it came over, trucked over in the 1930s, is that because of the Depression. Well, first of all, you had the 20s boom era, and especially in the city of St. Petersburg, there was a lot of development going on, not just buildings, but also infrastructure development. And so when the Depression hit, folks that had property in St. Petersburg were being hit with very high tax bills. And so consequently, a lot of the owners were abandoning their houses, and they were offering them so they get something out of the property by giving them away almost, very low sale. And so because of that economic depression and people abandoning their houses, these homes were often even totally abandoned, and then they were moved elsewhere. The integrity of 8345 Bocasiega Drive remains intact and is well maintained. Stylistically, the house is representative of the bungalow craftsman architecture. Staff has taken a look at this property's significance and finds that it reflects the broad cultural history of the North Beach area, and its residential component is consistent with a lot of the other properties in the neighborhood. It embodies the distinctive visible characteristics of the bungalow craftsman architecture style or period, and it's associated with the life of Yolande van, I'm going to get this pronounced incorrectly, Riesma, who owned the house and was an active community organizer and hostess between 1946 and 1975. And in 1975, before her death, Ms. Riesma transferred ownership of the house to her granddaughter, Sandra Sullivan, who is in the audience today with her husband. And staff is recommending that this contributing residential structure be recognized as a locally designated historic landmark property because it is significant and is well-maintained property that retains its integrity and is an excellent representation of City of St. Pete Beach architecture, and also architecture found on some of the other areas like Bella Vista, for example. It certainly is generally post-World War II, but some of these houses started coming here during the Depression. So staff is recommending that this contributing residential structure be recognized as a locally designated landmark because it is significant and a well-maintained property. It's been here for quite some time, and its architecture has remained architecturally intact. And be glad to answer any questions that you may have. And I know that the Sullivans are here and would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, would you like to come forward, speak? Oh, sir, I apologize. I thought it was. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Dennis Sullivan, and my wife, Sandra Sullivan, is here too. She's the real owner. She inherited the house in 1975. And my son, Peter Sullivan, is here also. Thank you for your time. And I really enjoyed looking into the history of our house and of the neighborhood. And it led to me putting together a booklet which documents what we know about the house's history. It was a lot of fun to do, and it turned out as a very interesting story. I'm sure you have a shared interest in the history of the area. I think I provided copies of that booklet to everybody. If you didn't get it or if you want another copy, let me know, and our son Peter can give you a copy. The staff report was very, very complete, and I don't have much to add, but I would ask you to look at 2 pages, if you have it, from the booklet. One is the cover page, which shows a watercolor from...
Maybe just interrupt for a minute. Can we put that on the overhead there for him? Just so we're on the same page, literally.
Where do I put it? Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, there.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. This shows a watercolor from 1946, just after Sandy's grandmother bought the house. And this photograph was taken this summer from the same vantage point. You can see that the basic exterior appearance of the house is the same. The woman in the door is Sandy. So it's a before and after, and there's another before and after, because if you'll turn the page to the inside page, these pictures are also of Sandy at the age of 3 in the backyard of our house, this house, along with her grandmother, Jolien van Riesma, in the boat. And she is property owner. She's here today. So the house has been in our family for 79 years, and it's covering 7 generations. Sandy and I raised our children in the house, and we've lived there for most of our lives. So the history of the house means a lot to us personally, but we think that the house has significant historical interest to the city, as detailed by Ms. Rossetti. It's one of the oldest houses in this end of the island. It's one of the few remaining houses of the pre-war bungalow architectural style. That's a nice expression for it. The construction old-timers say, this is a cracker house. Wood frame construction, typically raised up a couple of feet and put on cement pilings, short cement pilings. Those 2 feet turned out to be very important in Hurricane Helene. The house did get flooded in Helene, the first time in all of those years, over 80 years, that it got flooded, but the damage wasn't terrible. As I said, there are very few of these houses around. I could only spot 12 other pre-war cracker-style houses north of 75th Avenue, and of those, just 6 of them appear to be occupied. The rest of them, I think, will be lost because of Hurricane Helene. The old expression is no house is ever finished, and this one's 100 years old, and I can tell you it's not finished, and no house lasts forever. But for 79 years, our family has maintained and restored and improved the pumpkin shell, and we're proud of it. Historic designation will help us continue to do that. It'd be good for us and good for the city. Any questions, or what did I leave out?
Well, I want to thank you for the wonderful historical narrative that you gave us. That was wonderful. And that'll go in the permanent record, so people will have, that will be preserved. And did you ever find out when you were doing your research why it was named Pumpkin Shell?
That's going to be my
Sandy's
question.
grandmother named it. She was a very vivacious, artistically inclined person, given to grand gestures, and so she had bought a house down in Florida and decided to give it a grand name. She called it the Pumpkin Shell. Why she came up with that, I couldn't tell you.
It's
But
from the nursery
it's
rhyme.
still the pumpkin shell.
Pumpkin eater. Put her in a pumpkin shell, and there he kept her very well.
That's right.
Oh, well, I'm sure you're right about that. I forgot that one. All right. But it's very interesting and very fascinating and a great story, and we really, really appreciate you putting the time and effort in. And, this is the kind of stuff that makes our job feel worthwhile. So I appreciate it very much, sir.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Any other questions of anyone? All right, I'll make a motion that we do a local historic designation for 25082, case number, 25082 for the residents located at 8345 Boca Ciega Drive.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we move on to discussion items. 5A is a design review for 103 2nd Avenue.
Could you pull up
Mary?
PowerPoint, please? Some other photos of the prior cases we won't work through. So this is a little bit different from the design reviews the board typically sees, which are typically new construction on vacant or demolished and redeveloped lots. This applicant is Cal Webster for Kimberly and Stephen Turner. Address is 103 2nd Avenue. This is a combination of standards, but it's partially a design review pursuant to the Land Development Code Section 20.15 for a house medium style development. It is partially subject to our vested rights and nonconformities section as well, which is to convert an existing contributing one-story residence without floor to parking, storage, and access, and construct above a re-established living level. So they are making this structure floodplain compliant, but they're keeping the structure on the property, and they're adding a living level above to accomplish that. So I'll go through the design quickly. You can see the footprints of the structures are very similar. There is a little bit of infill just south of the garage, but otherwise the footprint more or less matches the structure's level that's being converted. They're also putting some additional landscaping in on the south side as required by the elevated building standards section of the Paso Grill overlay. I can see the current structure on the left, and then on the right, the proposed structure. They are keeping the coquina siding. They also are keeping the, well, it's a combination of lights on the alleyway side, but the window style on the north top of the building is similar to that on the bottom. On the top, they will have hardy lap siding horizontal, which matches the brickwork on the converted lower level. And you can see here at the top of the screen, the rear of the structure viewed from the alley, and then on the bottom, the east side of the structure, which is also along an alleyway. They are preserving the vehicle access to the site to the garage at the northeastern side of the site there. And then another zoomed in showing the back of the structure as it exists currently. You can see here the interior layout. The reason this is being undertaken, we have two processes through which the Historic Preservation Board can approve lesser setbacks than the underlying zoning district would allow for. The first is for contributing structures that are remaining contributing resources. Staff had assessed that option. That's not necessarily an option for this structure, which we'll get into in a moment. We also have the design review process, just as any new home would be eligible for those lesser overlay setbacks. The applicant would be taking advantage of those with this design. We had a few comments on the case. We have gone over these with the applicant as well as the owners. We did find that the design generally meets the design criteria. The new story contains similar spaces, windows, siding orientation, and color palettes as the converted ground level. The massing of the building we found to be appropriate for the area. This is a little bit different from what the board typically sees, but we do feel that it's an appropriate use of the structure given the damage, given the goals of the owners to preserve the structure as it exists today with its general spaces and layouts. I did speak to the owners about this. They have acknowledged that the modification, just because it is a permanent conversion, it couldn't be deconverted. It's likely to remove the structure's historic integrity. One of the major benefits of keeping a home and renovating and not undertaking this kind of work is that it allows for the living level to be preserved at grade or slightly elevated, not above the floodplain. The owner is undertaking this work, obviously, to make the home FEMA compliant. There may be future incentives that are introduced if the city were to enter into a Florida Main Street program or offer other incentives to historic structures in the future that this structure would not necessarily be eligible for, but we do feel that it preserves that design integrity, and we do feel they've done a very good job with that. One of the distinguishing features of the residence was the metal filigree post at the corner at the porch. Those are being removed. They're being replaced with an aluminum. I assume that's for structural integrity. I just would like the applicant to speak to that. The roof is being changed from concrete tile to a metal standing seam. That is obviously a significant modification. I assume it's for the life of the roof, but I would like the applicant to speak to that. And we have talked to the applicant. As I mentioned before, this is a combination of different standards in the Land Development Code. Because they are undertaking the design review process instead of the contributing structure addition standard. The rear of the structure, the living level that's being reestablished above, and the rear 15 feet, which is about the last 4 feet of the structure near the alley, is limited in height to the living level that is being converted. So that's approximately 8 feet at the rear of the structure. The reason for that is because that portion of the structure is not compliant with the design overlay requirements for a house medium. So the applicant and the owner are aware of this. They are going to keep the rear of the structure for that, at least that 4 feet at the living level height that is being converted. The remainder of the structure will step up, which is allowed by the code. I just wanted to point that out to the board. So with that being said, this is a design review. The board is eligible to make comments that assist with the compatibility of the structure within the district. This is a single-family use, so there are no other form of mass limitations other than those required under the design regulations. So there's no limitation in square footage that they would face as a multifamily structure would on this property. I'm happy to answer questions. We also have the applicant and I believe the owners present. Yes.
Brandon, I'm going to ask you to go back to the previous slide, I guess we call it. Number 5, can you Can you explain that a little bit more? I mean, I know you just did a good job as far as that goes, but I didn't quite, is that the area that's like above where like the carport would have been, the cutout?
Yeah, so that would be the garage at the rear of the structure. They're also adding a stair with access and landing at the rear, which they're eligible to do. The city passed regulations at the end of last year that allows for structures that are non-compliant to the setbacks to be either elevated in place or the ground level converted and the living level established above in the same footprint. So they don't need to comply with the setbacks. They would not need to get variances for that. However, the living level that is reestablished within the setback cannot be any greater in height than the one that is being converted. So the structure steps up, and the owner can confirm this, but I believe it steps up to about 11 feet at its highest point. And that portion of the structure is compliant with the setbacks, so they can go as high as they would like as long as they're compliant with the district regulations. But that rear 4 feet of the building, because it doesn't meet the setbacks for the overlay, they do need to keep that at 8 feet, and they have acknowledged that, and they will be compliant.
I appreciate that. That's, because this is a kind of a new thing for us, I think, which I think is interesting, but it's great too. I mean, I'm glad that people are converting or, attempting to convert the lower floors and, kind of duplicating what they had before, but on a second level. Is the applicant here? Want to step forward? Whoever wants to come out. We just, yeah. If you would, state your name for the records, please, or the record.
Cal Webster, Pioneer Built, contractor.
You want to state your name, please, sir?
Kim Turner.
Okay. Oh, hi. How are you? Questions? Oh, one thing I have, and this is kind of the owner's area, and I'm sure you've probably gone through this, but I just want to point this out in case it's something I don't think you're aware of, because I think as we get some redevelopment there after the storm, you could, I'm not saying you probably know this and have decided not to do it, but you can, if your house was historically designated, you could raise it up in the air and not have to be FEMA compliant and still retain the historic nature of the house. Many people don't want to do that because they want to be FEMA compliant and they're concerned with if we got another storm, how high in the air you want to be. I would point out that some of the old houses on Pass Grove actually didn't get flooded. The ones that were built maybe in the 20s were maybe 4 feet off the ground. So you all know that, and okay, I just want to make sure, make sure that that's something that you considered and pushed by.
We did look at those things, and it was determined, I believe Cal, through our architect, that it would not be easy to lift that foundation. And we also received 33 inches inside the house.
Yes.
And then add a foot for splash. And, we just decided, since it's a family home and we're hoping to leave this to our kids, that to take this off their plate and go higher.
No, I understand entirely. I just wanted to make sure that that was a consideration you went through. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for anybody about this?
I really like the way it looks, the addition, and I love the tabby stucco and that you're keeping that. It's really a nice look on the new house and the old house.
We really wanted to keep, I have just a brief thing that I was going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
It's brief. The history of the property is, we lived here for 35 years and raised our kids on Pass Grove. And we're only the second owners. First ones built it. We're all very attached to the house, its location and its orientation on the street. Its modest scale and the spaces around it at sunset, how the light changes. I don't have to explain Pass Grove to any of you. We've celebrated milestones here and memories. Working with our architect, we made every effort to honor all the things in the new design with a special emphasis on keeping the scale of the house compatible with the street, the neighborhood, and the historic community that we live in. For those reasons, we were determined not to demolish the house, but rather to duplicate it as closely as possible in a single story elevation. We paid attention to keeping an entry area on the ground floor and keeping the garage on the alley. I'm an avid watcher of the historic board meetings, so I try to take all of this in when I'm...
Good to know we're hammering it home then.
I heard you. We will keep the trees that survived. We have a mango in the back and, things.
Your mango survived?
Little sprouts are coming out.
Yeah, I know about 4 that every one I'm aware of died, including one I had.
It's still iffy, but if we don't get it, we'll replace it. And we'll replace the landscaping we lost, and I had just gotten the yard almost where I wanted it, and add more to enhance new spaces. To keep a traditional coastal vibe, we'll keep the shell exterior for sure, and trim the second level with horizontal siding in a coastal color to pick up colors in that coquina, and incorporate paned windows as we have on the first level. And and more importantly, we're just elevating a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and keeping, we're going to have to give up a little space in the bedrooms, but, interior stair, nothing to deal with on the outside and the front. The only difference is it'll be elevated according to FEMA mandates and hardened, so it'll be in a better position to weather the next unprecedented event. We sincerely hope that you agree with our efforts and approve the design.
Thank you, Ms. Turner, very much. Yes, and, I'll agree too. I think it's a great design. I love the fact that you're doing the 2-story. Everything you said is so great. Right? We really appreciate that. So this is just for informational purposes. Go get it. Go do it. I don't think anybody has any issues with anything at all. You've done a good job, and the city has said you might lose your potentially historic significance. The only way to find out is to come back and see if you get designated sometime in the future if you want to do that. But no, it's really great, and we appreciate it very much. And we love the fact that you love Pass Grill and are keeping it the way it's going. So thank you so much.
We appreciate it very much.
We might have to start passing out half plaques.
Yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see, discussion item 5B, which is a design review for 106 20th Avenue.
And this is one that the board's seen before. This is a new, from the ground up redevelopment. This is 106 20th Avenue, Casey Guest for Ileana Guest and W. Marion Guest Jr. Revocable Living Trust. This is also a house medium residence. It is proposed to replace the storm-damaged 2-family residence, so it is being made as a single family as defined by our code. You can see the layout of the property. They are keeping the pool and some of the other spaces at the back of the site. They are eliminating the existing parking. They'll be turning that, I believe, to green space, but the applicant is present and can speak to that. And they are making some frontage improvements as well. They are expanding out the house on the side, but it will comply with the house medium standards. The building is compliant with the setbacks. They are proposing a 2-foot encroachment for the spiral stairs at the front. That will move on to the Board of Adjustment later this month. Because this is not a contributing structure, it doesn't go through the design, the building goes through the design review, but it's not eligible for some of the waivers that the Historic Board is eligible to grant. So it will move on to the Board of Adjustment. You can see the front of the structure here. I believe they've done a very good job at preserving the design of the structure. Obviously, the windows are similar, different pitch to the roof, but otherwise, I feel that they've done a good job at preserving that in the reconstruction. And it's obviously above a ground floor parking, storage, and access level. Here's some more isometrics of the building. And the floor plans, again, just a one living level over a parking. We had just 3 comments on this one. The design preserves the features and massing of the existing residence. It does lack a defined front porch or stoop. As it currently stands, the code does allow for additional landscaping. This was submitted prior to the adoption of the amendments. Moving forward, a defined porch or stoop will be required based on the standards in the code. They do have a front entry area that functions that way, but it just doesn't meet the dimensional requirements in the code. They are eligible to install landscaping to resolve that. The access has changed from the alleyway to the two front connections. That is currently permitted, but it is a significant change to the block. There is one other property that I'm aware of on that block that does gain access from the avenue, but the others do primarily gain access from the alleyway. And that is, again, something under the forthcoming changes that will change when they're on an alleyway. I believe the alleyway here is 15 feet in width. There was just a slight disparity between the landscaping plan that was published with the packet and with the architect had shown on the building plans. It looked like the space, and I'll get back to it, at the north part of the site between the driveways was a paver pad on the landscaping plan that was shown as green space. So to meet the green space requirements, at least part of that needs to be foliage, ground cover, shrubs, and a tree. So I just wanted to point that out. That is something we can address with the applicant at the back end. With that being said, as with the prior case, the board can make comments that assist to ensure compatibility of the structure within the district. I did want to point out that this is now a single-family use. It was formerly a two-family use. Had they proposed to keep the two-family, which we've spoken with the applicant at length about, they would have been limited in square footage. This is obviously a fairly modest increase in square footage compared to what was on the structure or what was on the property previously. But because it's a single family, they are able to expand without need for any variances other than the variance for the front spiral stairs that I pointed out before. That's all I have. If you have any questions for me, if not, the applicant's present.
Okay, Mr. Brad, just a couple questions. Again, this is just for future use as well. So, can you put the very first slide back that shows that one, right? That kind of shows the house as designed. That on 20th, that has parking just on one side. Is that correct? Street parking? I believe it does.
On the south side of the street, yes.
On the south side. So that south side this house is on?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so do they have to do this, they have to get curb cuts, right?
Correct.
And is that an automatic thing, or they have to go through somebody to get that approval?
They would go through.
Stands right now, yeah. Right.
They would go through the building permit application process. We would work with our public services, and they are eligible for curb cuts under the current code. So
it's not a matter where they have to get a variance or anything like that. That is something that has to. And again, this is more for just my knowledge for future situations in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that? Because it strikes me it's somewhere in the code I had read they have to get approval for curb cuts, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know.
They do get approval. It is just an administrative process. We make sure that they meet the width and they'll have to have a certain offset and expansion joint with the sidewalk and so on, but otherwise they would be eligible for cuts.
And so and I know this isn't relevant to this case, but if we pass some of the suggested changes that we have that are kind of pending at the moment, how does that affect that aspect of getting curb cuts? Because if we change it so if you have an alley, you have to use the alley unless there's extenuating circumstances or something like that. How has that impacted that part of a request for a curb cut, if you know?
So in that case, moving forward, they would only be eligible for a curb cut through a variance. So they would have to provide parking access from the alleyway, and then they would go through the variance process to define what curb cut.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Berry?
I have a good point with regard to the parking on one side of that street. With their curb cuts, they're eating up 2, if not 3, on-street parking spaces on a street that's already got limited parking. And does all the concrete on the new plan work into the percolation or the pervious surface?
So they're required to meet, and I have spoken with the applicant about the landscaping requirements. We have this 70% maximum impermeable ratio for the lot, which is standard across the city. They will need to demonstrate that they meet that at time of permitting. So they're not asking for any variances to landscaping or impermeability at this time.
Okay, so, yeah, again, this is just informational, just discussion kind of stuff, and I'm just going to say, you know, I'm kind of torn because I think it's a great design. I think the house looks great. I really appreciate the fact that it's 2 stories and really fits the scale of the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, that's why when Mr. Hurley said it was on the parking on the southern side, I was concerned, you know, because basically north of about, I don't know, 12th or something like that, there's parking on just one side of the street instead of both sides of the street like it is in in the southern end of Paso Grill. And so a lot of houses that are on the side that doesn't have parking get curb cuts and they don't use their alleys, and that seems to be more and more, you know, done. And of course you've heard me ad nauseum and all of us talk about the alleys and what the purpose for them is, and we really think that that's an aspect that makes it uniquely Paso Grills, because it has alleys and people park in the back and they don't put their garage doors on the front street if they have that opportunity. Again, this is a very beautiful design, but it's going to take away 2 or 3 parking spaces in an area where parking is at a premium. And, you know, the current house now has the parking in the back. And so, you know, I'm talking about this, like I said, I'm kind of torn because it's a beautiful design. On the other hand, I really, really wish the parking was in the back, you know, and I don't know if that could, the plans, obviously they can build this regardless of how we feel about that. But I think, you know, it would be so great if the parking was in the back. And I know they have a pool back there. It's pretty small. I actually went down the alley today just to kind of check it out. But I think they had areas for 2 parking spaces in the back, the way it was set up. Now, it wasn't in a garage, and obviously they're going to knock the house down, and it's, you know, they can do whatever they can build whatever they want at that point. But, you know, that would be my comment. And this isn't a situation where the owner or the applicant has to defend what they're doing. You know, they can if they want, but you know, it would just be so nice if it was in the back in the alley, which is what, you know, we always feel the alleys are for.
I think one nice compromise would be, because there was that parking in the back on the left side if you're looking at the house from the front. If there was a drive-through garage from the front to the back where one car can access from the alley side and one can access from the drive side, then you're only granting one curb cut, and the other side is just green space, would be a lot.
It is. I mean, but it's going to require, obviously, if they want to do that, new architectural plans or whatever. And as I said in the beginning, you know, what you've designed is nice, and there's we can't stop anything. All we can do is kind of make suggestions, and whether that was thought through already, I don't know. But you know, as far as you said, it doesn't really. I'm trying to think what the other house along there has a curb cut in the front.
There's 2 to the east of it. The one directly east of it has a curb cut, and it's right next to the property that is right next to the alleyway.
Right.
It also has a curb cut.
Right. And that's across the street from one of the houses just got demolished too, right?
Yes.
The brick house?
The one that just came before us with their plans.
Yes. And do you remember offhand whether they had parking in the back or not?
They went over, they did all theirs off the alleyway.
Okay. All right. Does anybody want to get up and speak about this? Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, I want to get to the podium real
Yes.
quick. Set my stuff down. Good afternoon. I want to start by thanking you for your time today. I'm Casey Guess, here to represent my mother, Ileana Guess, as trustee for the property. Regarding our house at 106 20th Avenue that has been owned by our family for over 20 years. I want to kind of take a little back step here. I will address all of your questions. I have answers to everything you brought up. I've tried to prepare for that. But let me take a step back. Being a historical committee, I thought y'all might appreciate seeing, do it just set it here?
Face up. Face up.
Oh, face up? Oh, well, hey, then y'all aren't gonna be able to see it.
We can kind of see it.
So, this, if you can see it, was the house.
Actually, we can.
You can't?
You can, yes. No, I love the way you're doing it, right.
So, my parents bought this house in 2004 when I was pregnant with my second daughter. And it's a duplex, and each side has 650 square feet. Since that time, Brandon, when he was speaking, has a picture of the duplex the way it is. We've done some additions on it. Having to tear the duplex down is ripping our heart out. We have never cried so hard. And my mom and I spent, my father passed away in 2012, and when he did, I became executor, power of attorney, custodian, trustee, hence why I'm here. Anyway, we really did not want to do that. We spent months looking into ways that we could keep it. We ran into the obvious FEMA 50% financial limitations. I did speak with someone on the historic committee to let me know about designating it historic and keeping it. But then we ran into other limitations. Did you know you cannot get a loan for a duplex? That was sort of the defining factor for us. The builder also did let us know the difficulties of time and cost in raising the home, but even then we were willing to go forward to keep it because it has so many memories of me bringing my children down there and being on Paso Grill and allowing them to run and play and be able to close my eyes as a mom and not worry about them. So the fact that us, like so many other people, have wound up having to tear down their beloved historic homes is really sad. But to honor our old duplex, we're going to pull up some of the old hardwood flooring, preserve it, and my daughter, who was I was pregnant with when they bought it, is now 21, an interior design student, and she's going to make me a statement piece out of the hardwood flooring. So that helped my heart a little bit. So, as you know, our duplex was destroyed by the hurricanes last fall, Helene and Milton. Our intent is to rebuild responsibly with a hurricane-compliant home 12 feet in the air that is safe, functional, and blends seamlessly into the character of St. Pete Beach. We've been working with a licensed architect and builder since January. Please know we spent a lot of time thinking about ways that we could honor our old home, and Brandon hit the nail on the head in the photograph he showed with our old duplex next to the proposed design of the new home, keeping the arched windows, the front doors and the arched windows. That was sort of our guiding principle, as we needed for our own hearts and minds to take that piece with us because we have so many wonderful memories there. We also chose our design with the light colors, the terracotta roofs, stucco exterior, arched doors and windows, because it is definitely rooted in St. Pete's tradition of coastal and Mediterranean style. We see this all over the island. And in fact, our inspiration home that is on Paso Grill, I slammed on brakes. Thankfully, it was on a side street, took a picture of it, and there's a home, bigger and better, 3 stories on the beach, but down from the Don, that looks just like this. And so we took this home to our architect and said, we want a Mediterranean/coastal style home that goes in with the island. The Don Cesar, with its arches and its terracotta roofs, is Mediterranean, along with homes seen in Paso Grille's historic district. But that said, it is our hope that our home blends seamlessly in with the community. And I wanted to thank you again for listening to our proposed design. We hope it meets up with the board's expectations, and the city's standards. Now, to address some of your concerns, I'm going to start with the entryway design to explain how and why we came up with the front design and the way we did. Because the property, the home, must now be raised 12 feet in the air for hurricane compliance, this creates big challenges with stair design. For our family, it is essential that this be safe and accessible. I have a 82-year-old mother who I adore, who, let's face it, we all get older, we're still going to want to get into that beach house. Along with, to be honest with you, myself, I have had a lifetime of hip surgeries starting at age 2. I've had my hip replaced. I have more to come. So it is essential to our family that we have a home that will be wheelchair accessible. We can get in and we can get out. In addition to that, the stairs cannot be so steep. I have impaired leg strength, significantly impaired leg strength. So I needed stairs that were not so steep. So stairs rising 12 feet perpendicular to the front created very steep steps and required encroaching several feet into our setbacks to make it functional. Also, not very visually appealing, frankly. We also considered stairs stretching horizontally across the front. This still resulted in steep stairs that were difficult to climb, as well as dominated the front facade. When we talked about adding a landing, the stairs got even bigger. Also, we have limitations that we have to adhere to. For example, moving the home backward into the lot wasn't feasible because the existing pool is only 5 feet behind the house, and that was to code. When we built the pool in 2020, the pool had to be 5 feet away from the house. We took y'all seriously. The pool is 5 feet from the house. And then incorporating the stairs within the house footprint reduced what we considered essential living space for wheelchairs. I know the last time I was in a wheelchair and a walker, my own home in Atlanta, I could not go to the bathroom because it wasn't big enough for my walker and wheelchair to get through. And I told my mom, something good comes out of something bad. So our something good is going to be making this home wheelchair accessible. I also, during one of my last surgeries, spent the summer convalescing at the beach. Same thing. The duplex, while we loved it, was not accessible for those in wheelchairs and walkers. And so this home is being designed with that in mind. It's essential for us. So back to the staircase, it needs to be something that's not steep. It needs to be something that is visually beautiful and something that does not dominate and you look at the front of the house and think wall of stairs. It should be beautiful. It should be seamless. When you talk about a home that you feel welcomed into, it shouldn't be this visual of stairs going across the front. So our stairs have a very minimal visual impact. They create a gentle slope that is easier to climb, also does not require a landing. They're compact, they're balanced, they avoid the wall of stairs look, and they are more consistent with a neighborhood-friendly appearance. The curved staircase, we believe, maintains a welcoming quality while avoids a bulky design or steep steps that are hard to climb for people like me. Any questions?
Not that. I mean, I was going to say, I think the stairs in the front are beautiful and it fits in really, really well with the house, and I agree everything you've said about that. I don't know if everybody else thinks that, but I mean, I think that's a really good way to kind of minimize the stairs in the front. And I think our bigger concern, or again, this is just, you know, review, we're just giving you our opinion, is the alley access aspect. Right. And you have told me something that made me think about that a little bit so you don't have an elevator, right?
So what we have is lift. We didn't want an elevator because we're both a little claustrophobic and because the power goes out at the beach a lot. So we have a lift that is going to be covered on our back porch. And this is designed for the wheelchairs to get up, groceries to get up, and all of that. Now, moving to the alleyway access, I would like to, can y'all bring up a picture? Oh, here, this will work. This will work. Okay, this will work. All right. So currently, the way the house is set up, did I miss something? Oh, okay.
No.
All right, this next section that I'm going to be presenting to you is on the alleyway driveway access, all right? So currently, our home, where this is sod, has the driveway in the back, which is concrete. So when my parents purchased the house in 2004, apparently the person before him had a concrete business, and our entire property is covered in concrete. And it has been our goal throughout time to get rid of that concrete. So one of the best ways that we can get rid of concrete and impervious surfaces, increase green space, and frankly just make it more beautiful, is to get rid of that concrete driveway. We did carefully consider retaining this setup during the design phase. Here's the reason we didn't. One, there's only room for one car back there, not two. You can't, if you put two, you're gonna scratch cars, we've tried, or you're gonna scratch the walls as you pull in. Also, extremely difficult maneuvering. The alleyway access is limited because it's extremely difficult to pull in and extremely difficult to pull out. There is a house directly behind our driveway, which is somebody else's little garage area. And it requires extensive maneuvering. And we've almost hit his garage multiple times, including both my daughters who were learning how to drive. Which is the reason why our family usually parks in the front of the house. So we talk about those two spaces, that was us, we were using them, because that back alleyway is impossible to pull in and pull out of. And when we used it, frankly, was when we had guests. Also, the alleyway is just, it's a very tight space. So green space for us is a huge priority. I've told Brandon this before, we want our property to look kind of like a lagoon. We want lots of green space. We want native plants, we want butterflies and hummingbirds, and we want no concrete. And the pavers that we're gonna have are only so that you can walk from one area to the other. So we want to significantly increase the green space on our property, which is limited if that alleyway driveway remains. Pulling up the back alleyway concrete driveway reduces impervious surfaces and enhances the property's landscaping and appearance. In addition, there are site conflicts that we have to consider. Keeping the current back alleyway concrete driveway conflicts with our necessary back stair placement for the new build, which requires rear stairs for secondary access. With the pool on the back southeast side, the stairs cannot go here. So the new stairs are gonna go right here. And so we would not be able to access under the house because the new stairs are going to be there, which is the problem. And even if we didn't put stairs there, we would then have to add concrete from the driveway right here to be able to pull in under the house. This is contrary to our goal of increasing green space and reducing impervious surfaces. Here's our design logic. The main area, living area, is elevated with required concrete beneath the footprint of the house. So it seemed to us common sense and efficient to place the driveway in the front, reducing the need for additional impervious surfaces in the rear. The front of the house sits closer to the street, making it easier to pull in and out of, and reduces the need for additional concrete. Finally, the Inspiration home we based our design on is currently in Pass Grill that also has this 2-driveway design that is shortened. Our proposed solution are the short driveways finished with pavers and mondo grass, like this beautiful picture here I found on Pinterest. This is what we're going for, so that storm water can drain where the grass is. And we're gonna have pavers. We really don't want concrete. It'll allow the water to filter into the ground, soften the look of the driveway, blending seamlessly into the landscaping. Finally, if necessary, we will remove pavers. Please know the only concrete on the property will be under the footprint of the house itself. So the bottom line is, because of the necessary building code requirements of the proposed back steps, it just is not practical to keep that pad of concrete there for all those reasons. Any questions?
Well, I will say you did an excellent job in presenting your you've certainly thought this out. Just a couple observations, and this is just in general, please. It has nothing to do with your situation, particularly because you made a lot of good points, okay? And for example, the last thing you showed, showing the driveway there and how you propose to do it, because of course one of my comments would be, well, your driveway is going to be concrete, but it's not. You're going to make it so it's impervious, right? Exactly. And I don't know how difficult it is. It's oftentimes difficult to be able to grow grass in those situations.
Dwarf mondo grass, and I got the idea.
You got it? Okay, that's good.
There's a house on Pass Grill that has it. Another one of those stop the car moments and take pictures of it. I love it. I told my mom that's what we got to have.
Well, I think that's really good. Okay. And so I'm just saying this as a general comment, not about your specific scenario. You know, we talk about the concrete pad and stuff in the back and the pool, but in reality, you're demolishing your house and basically starting fresh.
Right.
So you can almost do anything you want.
Right.
You aren't stuck with a concrete pad or something like that. However, you know, in my opinion, what you've talked about, the steps and all those things, as I said in the very beginning, I think your design is a beautiful design.
Thank you.
It's only that we have, I guess, I have to make comments, I guess, about the principle of not using the alleys because we're trying to push that through. But I understand what you've said. This is just a design review. You've certainly, in my opinion, made some good points. I don't know how other people feel about this, but I appreciate very much the thought you put in this. I think it's a beautiful looking house.
Thank you.
I believe, I don't know if I spoke to you or maybe your mother right after the storm.
It was me.
Okay.
Is that you?
Like live in Georgia or something like that?
Yes, that was me. We had an hour-long conversation.
Yes, I was standing in my backyard looking at all the damage myself at the time. Right. Right. So with you know, that's the only comments I have. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything or not, but I do appreciate.
I'd like to add, and I don't, you know, I was a teacher for a while, so I get it. You never want to say, well, Johnny did it, so why can't I? However, I'd like to add that my lovely next-door neighbors, who I truly adore, have 20th Avenue access. And while I completely understand the welcoming feel that we want people to come to Pass Grill because it's so beautiful and it's so family-oriented, and isn't it lucky that we bring families to Pass Grill Island? On the other hand, for an owner to have a place to park is such a relief, especially when we have company. Now we're going to pull all the way under the house, and we will keep our cars and our family's cars off the street, so that will open up some of those spaces.
Right, and I get that, but the flip side to that coin is you're taking away 2 parking spaces, okay? And so, and you have a good point. You know, there's other places on 20th, and all I can do to respond to that is say that over the years, I don't think we paid as much attention to Pass Grill as maybe should have been, maybe because, I hope no one throws rocks at me, but it was a bit of a beach ghetto in the 70s and the 80s, okay? I mean, that's just the nature. It was an old neighborhood, and it really hadn't become historic, and that people, the charm and uniqueness hadn't really come through like it has now, or the property values, you know. So, you know, we, or at least myself, I think we, and then as a board, we're trying to keep the view out there. We want people to think alley, 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 if we can do it. You, like I said, you have done an excellent job in presenting your situation, and you've put a lot of thought into it. And even when and if we get this requirement of using the alley, that's not always going to be a hard and fast rule. It depends on individual situations, you know.
There's a little bit of a nuance that y'all wouldn't know about unless you lived there. There's a little bit of a nuance between 20th and who's the next street up. Going into the island, the houses, the neighbors of mine that share the driveway. The nuance is stay out of the alleyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know, so we try to, right? But that's the nuance. And in fact, one of my neighbors even said to me, y'all really shouldn't be parking back here.
Right. Well, I can see that. And part of that problem, just since you're talking about that, is, you know, we're volunteers, right? So we're not employees of the city, and part of the reason we want to make this alley thing happen is so the city starts taking better care of the alley.
Listen, I'm all for putting trash back in the alleyway.
No, so my point is, we're trying to bring the alleys back to what they maybe once were and what they were intended for. As I said, I went behind your house tonight, and I had to go through 2 feet of grass in the middle of the alley.
They're cutting it. Oh,
I understand, so I'm just saying, you know, so
yeah.
Yes, the nuance has been created, and you're right about that, and that's something we would like it moving forward to kind of try to improve
the
on.
alleyways add charm. I love them.
Oh, yeah.
I love them. All right, so let me move forward to the green space or impervious surface ratio. And let me put this back up. So, all right. Please know, we are absolutely committed to the city's impervious surface ratio, and we are committed to providing as much green space as possible across the property. To comply, here are the steps we were taking. Removing all concrete on the property, thank goodness, except for what is necessary under the footprint of the home. That includes replacing the existing back concrete driveway with landscaping to reduce those impervious surfaces, increase green space, and improve appearance. It's going to be beautiful. We are also maintaining and increasing green space along both sides of the house. What I'm not sure y'all saw in the landscaping plans y'all received is the fact that there is currently green space 2 to 2.5 feet all along the sides of the wall. And hopefully what we're going to do is just put pavers and more green space. We want it to be so welcoming and so lovely and so natural. Only using pavers where necessary. The landscaping plan submitted does meet the required tree count, but is not reflective of the full current amount of green space on the property. If our 24% green space requirement is still not met, we are absolutely prepared to remove portions of the pavers in the back to increase the pervious area. We are keeping the landscaping that survived, as we have some beautiful plants back there, and we're heartbroken to see some of them passed away. But we're going to keep what survived, and our new plans will prioritize Florida native plants to enhance beauty, privacy, and ecological benefits. Our approach will not only enhance our property, but also support stormwater absorption, benefiting the island during heavy rainfall, which, as we know from last fall, is so important. And our house, even though it was 5 feet up, did get flooded with up to 3 feet of water. Our green space and landscaping will help the home blend seamlessly with the island. So we're committed to balancing our family's needs with the city's environmental and aesthetic standards. We hope these steps demonstrate our dedication to compliance and enhancing neighborhood character. And wanted to know if you had any questions regarding green space or anything else that I have spoken on.
I don't. I mean, just so you know, we don't actually get the only landscaping plan we have is this right here.
Okay.
So they don't provide us with all that, the minutia, which is great, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I love your level of commitment. I think you'll be a.
I just wanted us all on the
Fine,
same
yep, no.
page, and I certainly, being the historical architectural committee, or just the historical committee, want y'all to know how desperately we did try to save that duplex. And I, to be honest with you, thought we were going to have to demolish it before I came. We have not, for multiple reasons. So I was out there yesterday and cried again. The new house, yes, it's beautiful, but there is something to be said for the old house that you could be sandy in, sit down and not worry where you sat, fall out of bed, and wind up on the beach. So we did try. We really did. And not being able to get a loan was sort of the final straw. But
Okay, I appreciate this very much.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
I think so. Thank you, Ms. Gass.
Thank you so much. And oh, and one more thing. I just wanted to say a special call out to Brandon Berry, Kristen Coleman, and department for all of y'all's help. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, they oftentimes don't get enough credit like they should.
Yeah, they've been instrumental in getting me
We
information.
agree.
so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, 5C, local historic districts.
Yeah, we wanted to keep this fairly brief. I think we'll bring back more information for you in the future, but we wanted to talk a little bit about local historic districts, which we have the national version. We also have the power to designate a local version, which we do not currently have. We, of course, have our long list of locally designated properties and resources, but a district is a little bit different in functionality, and Lynn has some experience with early historic districts and getting them established over in St. Petersburg, so I wanted her to talk a little bit about the process. They've obviously designated many more districts since the late 90s, I believe, but you know, we got to start somewhere, so Lynn can give some.
Good afternoon again, Lynn Rossetti. Brandon, did you send them a copy of the
124-page document, yeah, we got that.
Yeah, yes, I got that Sunday and started reviewing it while we're closing out that grant. So I haven't finished reviewing it, but that's, you know, that's for a potential historic district. And why have I been relentless in going about seeking grants to get areas that I think have district potential or just good neighborhoods, to get them surveyed and find out what's in there? So as far as local historic districts, before you actually declare a local historic district, you need to know what your inventory is. So survey is the first step, where you inventory your assets, you know, what you've got, and try to organize them. You can organize them in districts because they are in close proximity geographically. They also have various characteristics that are similar, and they have generally some common type of situation. But really, what are the benefits of having a historic district, or, you know, developing resources? I think actually when you start to get a lot of districts in your community, you probably need to develop a historic resources management plan. I know when I was in St. Petersburg, I ran my first historic survey in 1977. I know I was about 5 years old, but, you know, 55 years old, no. I was pretty old. Well, I wasn't very old then. I was fresh out of college, but I had been involved in historic preservation in college. And I got assigned to oversee the first historic survey that they were doing in St. Pete. So after that, you know, we looked at some other areas as well. But what the city decided to do, they tasked me with writing an historic resources management plan as well, to take a look at those areas where we had identified a bunch of areas that we called areas of significance. We weren't calling them districts yet. Legal said don't call them districts, because we were doing a lot of survey work and we were finding clusters of properties that went together. And they may be neighborhoods by themselves, it may be a couple of neighborhoods, maybe portions of neighborhoods that lent themselves to being historic districts. And so we just finally decided that we needed to have a plan that would help us categorize them as maybe locally significant or National Register significant. At that time, some of the sections 106 federal tax breaks were coming on board, and folks wanted to know, especially in the commercial areas. And there are a number of benefits to having districts and also a management plan, but you can develop protection of your historic properties, guidelines for project planning, stakeholder engagement, long-term preservation, and such plans are pretty essential for pursuing what you want to do with your cultural heritage, how you want to protect it, how you might want to organize it. Doing districts is a way of organizing things. Districts actually run not just geographically, not just a geographic location, but you could have thematic groupings that are called historic districts. They would be something that maybe all houses in a particular area or community were done by a certain architect. Things like that. Just many different things that you can kind of look at and say, okay, these are all hotels that were really important in the early tourist industry out on Paso Grill, like your hotel, Danielle, or others up and down the beach. There may be more, because you've got to remember, St. Petersburg Beach used to be called Long Key, and it had 4 municipalities. It had Paso Grill, it had Don Cesar Place, Bella Vista, and St. Petersburg Beach. Corey is part of St. Petersburg Beach. We've been awarded a survey for certain to do the North Beach area. That is going to be the funds. We're taking the contract to the City Commission on September 22nd. And North Beach is the neighborhood, the residential neighborhood of the Corey area. The Corey area has a lot of different places too. You've got, just like Paso Grill, you've got the Corey Main Street, and then you've got other properties. So when you're taking a look at preservation and your stakeholder engagement, you've got to take a look at your inventory, what you've got, and what makes sense to protect together. And sometimes one size doesn't fit all. We aren't going to take the rules and regulations that we use for design review in Paso Grill and apply them probably any place else in St. Pete Beach. There may be a necessity to do maybe more generic ways of dealing with this. I remember after we ran several surveys in St. Petersburg, I was tasked with preparing what's called a historic resources management plan. And just, coming up with rules and things that could be done, tools that could be used. And how do we get to, the long-term preservation of these areas. And so these plans really are essential for the preserving of the cultural heritage, if that's what the community wants to do. Like I say, even in one community, not everything is one size. So we have to start thinking out of the box a little bit, probably. But, you know, we really can, the first thing, major thing to do is to create a master inventory, which is what we're doing with these historic surveys. I don't recall if I told you that we also applied for a survey to do the area that's between, it's on Gulf Boulevard, up and down Gulf Boulevard, specifically between where Corey ends and where Bella Vista and Don's are, and to capture those areas, especially the tourist areas. That's a grant that I had just applied for. It would also include finishing Bella Vista, which had to be done through probably 3 surveys, because there were over 555 properties in Bella Vista that were of an age and style that we wanted to survey. Let's see. I don't know. I think we might want to begin exploring ways that, you know, as a city and as a historic board, to start thinking about, with this master inventory that we're developing, how we might want to begin exploring ways to protect these resources. Certainly it won't be using the design guidelines in Paso Grill, because they wouldn't translate. And those are things that we can, you know, develop, and we may want to have some discussions about. And you guys may have great ideas, and staff can brainstorm. And the more we find out what we've got, the more we find out what we want to save. For example, I know that with the downtown area of Corey, I know that he's left, but we are probably going to be looking at the possibility of certain downtown redevelopment efforts, but downtown redevelopment efforts and historic preservation can still run hand in hand together. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. That's been very successful, I know, in St. Petersburg. I don't know if you guys may have some questions. I'll be glad to try and answer them. Otherwise, I think we want to, you know, kind of keep our minds open and maybe have some discussions or even a workshop at some point to talk about what we've got, what our historic resources are, what we think that they may be, and how we might want to try to protect them. Any questions?
I have one question about designating a historic district. Do the owners of the properties within that proposed district have a say in whether or not they want to be part of a historic district? And if there's a majority that do not, does the city still move forward, or are their hands tied with that?
That depends. First of all, right now, like I say, this is the inventory stage. But if you want to create a local historic district, and I did 2 of those in St. Petersburg, their regulations required a minimum of, or more than 50% of the property owners had to sign off that they wanted to be in the district. And then it was, if they did, it went forward, and if not, it didn't. But the 2 that I did were Roser Park and Granada Terrace. They were both approved. They both still stand today as local historic districts, and they are regulated accordingly. And some feathers were ruffled in a couple of other areas that were later done. One was in Allendale, or Allendale Terrace. I'm not sure, because I wasn't an employee. I wasn't working there anymore at that time. And also Driftwood, where in Driftwood, there was a house that was owned by George Gandy, Gandy Bridge. George Gandy had a very significant history in St. Petersburg. He was a very influential person. Well, he had a lovely 2-story white clapboard house in Driftwood. And if any of you have seen the Driftwood neighborhood, it's an amazing neighborhood of very unique vegetation and tree canopy and houses. And much of it was developed by a guy named Randall Dodd. And so that neighborhood decided that they wanted to become a local historic district. And the folks who owned the Gandy residence did not want it. And they wound up house eventually became demolished, but that was because there was a technicality in collecting the signatures and the sign-offs. And because of that, that particular lawsuit was lost. A similar thing happened with a house in the Allendale Terrace area, which was owned by Doc Webb. And if any of you have heard of Webb City, probably all of you, then you would know that Webb City was pretty significant, and so was Doc Webb. He had a big old 1920s, kind of a colonial vernacular house, 2-story, beautiful, and it wound up being lost as well because, again, a mistake was made, and it was about at the same time, I think, both mistakes, well, similar, maybe by however they were doing it at that time. I wasn't there, but those are some of the pitfalls where you've got to follow the rules exactly, or those who may want to circumvent it or get out of it maybe have a way to do it. I know legal can probably talk to that sort of thing, but I don't know. I think at some point we may want to come up with maybe even going back to something like a book that is a architectural structure type book or something where we find out what characterizes these neighborhoods. I can tell you from the survey work that we've been doing, a lot of it is mid-century. Most of it is, a lot of it's post-World War II and on into the 50s. But there are some areas that have some older properties as well. And we're just finding out what they are. I don't know if you've got any questions or anything else. It's just,
I think we'll be, well, no, this one, I think will be, when we start getting the results of some of these, like you said, the inventories, then I think we start do.
Exactly, what do we have?
See if there's then interest in the community. I know Don Cesar probably does, but, you know, when we get that, we'll go do that, I think.
Who knows? And there are 2 levels, local districting and National Register districting.
Just for clarification, is Pass the Grill, is that, I know it's on the national, but is it, we also have a local
Yes,
district?
I believe
Of
so,
course we do,
Brandon.
okay.
No,
we don't, and that's why we wanted to bring this to you, because remember,
okay. I wasn't sure.
to member Hawkinsmith's point, currently our regulations require that everyone in a local historic district opt in, so functionally it's not a whole lot different from the individual designations that you see every meeting at this point. That's not typical other jurisdictions. It doesn't work typically for designating a whole area because the property owners who want to move forward will move forward with the individual designations, but typically there's some kind of a referendum process or a community-driven plan process. I believe St. Pete's gone through both, and I think we've talked in the past about other regulations and potentially how to move forward on something like this. We would have to amend our code to get that started, but if that's something that we were to look to move forward on, because the local designation or the district designation is what really gives cities the ability to regulate historic districts, not the National Register, not the overlay, which is a opt-in voluntary process in most cases.
Right.
So,
Right. That's how you can start protecting them as a.
Right. So when we talk about what we do here, we often, our favorite term is, a bunch of teeth as far as that goes, and that's, if we wanted more teeth, let's say, then that would be a situation where the community would have to, we'd have to do a referendum or something like that to buy in, which, I don't know, I think that the timing of that is certainly more significant now, not only for what's happened after the storm, but I think people who actually live down there recognize it a lot more as well, too. And that, I think that's probably a route we'd like to go. So I don't know what we have to do to get that rolling, you know what I mean, or see what our steps we'd have to take to see if we want to bring it up to the community to vote on something like that. Is that something you say we have to amend it with? I'm sure we have to go to the city commission, I assume, right?
correct, and that's probably a logical way to move something like that forward, because there is an acknowledgement that this is something that may become an option in the future. Of course, we have a process. It just requires an opt-in from every property owner within the district, so we've never really had that occur. because we would be,
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You say it's an opt-in from every member?
it has to be an opt-in from every member in the district.
So, for example, in Pasco, 100% of the homes would have to say they want to do it?
Correct, and we can define the historic district, doesn't necessarily need to be 32nd down to
Yeah, of course,
First.
right.
We could have 8th Avenue or 7th to 9th, however we'd want to define it, but even in that case, under current regulations, it has to be an opt-in from every property owner.
Okay.
So,
I think it would be really helpful for us and really important moving forward to have an outline, like a timeline of, you know, when we give public notice to individual property owners. And like right now, I know, you know, Corey Avenue merchants are not the same sect as Corey Avenue property owners. So you might come and do a presentation at Corey Avenue merchants meeting, but not capture the attention of the actual property owners. And the property owners are the ones who have to opt in if we were doing
Yes.
a historic designation for the district.
Mhm.
So I think kind of a timeline of this is when we do this, and then we have to do this. Before we expend a lot of resources for the city, team-wise and finances-wise, getting so far ahead and then finding out there's not that 100% or majority interest in the property owners that we would have to have in order to move forward, then there's just a lot of work that's been done that isn't going to produce what we want as a goal. So to consider that in a timeline and kind of create an outline of what we would need, including a workshop or two in there for information sessions, I think would be important before we get too far down the road. I know going to the meeting on the 22nd, there's probably going to be some financial commitment on the city level and understanding what happens when that money is spent and the likelihood of it moving forward to a designated district, like where.
Well, I also think I just started thinking about how a lot of these community associations that already meet that are, you know, have nothing to do with the city or our group or whatever. I mean, that's where you're going to get a real pulse, I think, for what people want to do. I mean, from what Brandon just said, I suppose you could say, okay, if you wanted to have the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Avenue its own local district, you know, or something like that, that could be done, I suppose. I mean, because if it has to be every single person, you know, if there's 100 properties, I'm sure there's going to be one person that's going to say no. If there's 8 properties, I mean, I don't know how big or small it has to be, but the starting point, I think, would be at some of these community associations that actually get the people out and they speak to them.
Mhm.
So that's an approach too. So it's all good, you know, food for thought. All right. Anything else on that? Thank you, Len. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're at 5D, Design Guidebook, Preferred Architectural Styles and Promoted New Builds.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep this brief. Thank you. I have received from 2 members photos of your preferred, and it's actually much more expensive than what I asked for, so I appreciate that. We'll definitely include some of these homes and those that have been significantly renovated or elevated in place or had additions. I'm not covering those today. I just wanted to, if we could pull up the PowerPoint, show just a few slides of new builds. And these are at least at the time they were constructed, they were under and subject to our floodplain ordinance. So just some homes that we were sent photos of from members that they believe are in line or approaching the design regulations as we would like to see them amended. Actually, I wanted to point out 104 19th Avenue. We would not currently allow that design because the bottom is open at more than a 20%, openness on the ground level, so that if that is something that the board would like to see, and we don't have to cover it today, I just wanted to point that out. That might be something we want to address through our overlay amendments.
And sorry, isn't the one in the middle, wasn't that an addition to a older home? That wasn't a full knockdown rebuild, was it?
I think it was.
Because I thought I remember doing the review where they were adding that kind of it's really not a floor, I think it's more of a higher ceiling.
You're correct.
And I think that was added on to a structure that already existed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever, I'm just saying, yeah, okay.
And just one more slide. So this is really just a reminder to members, if you could send me, when you get some time, photos or just addresses of some of the homes that are new builds or substantial additions to or renovations of older homes that you feel meet the intent of the design overlay. I would appreciate that, and we'll include those in the design guidebook versus the draft, and then we'll move that forward to commission once the board signs off on it. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, but just kind of on this stuff, when we're talking about preferred architectural styles, is that something we can, I know we've talked a little bit, I know you got plenty to do, Brandon, so I'm not, trying to, put more on your shoulders as far as that goes, but we had talked in the past about, some of the styles we want to put in our guideline book. And so I think that's something from the board's point of view, that not only sending him pictures of these new builds, but some of the existing architectural styles that we think should be included in the design guidebook, whether it's, Spanish Mediterranean, Craftsman, bungalow, whatever. And so I think we need, ultimately, when we have the actual guidebook put together, we'll have a number of photographs that will show those styles, so when people do new builds, hopefully they'll try to emulate that in some fashion. So I would encourage, I know I just dropped a whole bunch on Brandon the other day, and I ran out of colored ink on my printers, but so can we, and I mentioned this to you the other day as far as this design guidebook. I mean, it's something I think we really have to get that moving here quickly, because everything's rapidly changing, and as much as we can push and, generally we're encouraging people after they've already made plans, and so if we have the guidebook there, when they read the ordinances, they'll already have an idea of what we're looking for. And so I know Tara's working on some of that, but I think we really got to get something going on that. And like I said, I'll assist any way we can, but,
I have a question about that. Where are we in regard to the storms and being able to make changes that we ran into the year before?
Well, I don't know. Brandon, you can speak to that, but I think we kind of thought that the proposed changes that we have, I think we decided none of them are really affected by this moratorium legislation, or whatever you want to call that.
I did review the overlay with the attorney's office, and they were comfortable with what was in that. We did make the Division 40 8th Avenue design review requirement optional. It's strongly recommended, but it's not required. So that would be the one significant change there. That was to bring us into compliance with Senate Bill 180. So, and I did want to mention to the board, with the overlay, we have requirements that refer to the design guidebook, but that's really the last piece. I mean, we've obviously for several years been working through the overlay and the 8th Avenue amendments. We're trying to move the guidebook forward as quickly as possible, but there are more zoning related standards in the overlay and the 8th Avenue district amendments that don't necessarily rely on the design guidebook or just design in general. That we talked about access to the property today, for example. That's more related to the zoning side of things and when we grant curb cuts. So if this is something that is going to take a couple more months to put together, but if there's consensus from the board and I can add it on the agenda next month, we can maybe look at separating out the zoning amendments, carry those forward for final adoption, and then potentially come back and deal with the design guidebook and items like that, because we have, we've been in a holding pattern for a few months now, and I think there are board priorities that fall more on the zoning side than the guidebook side. I could add this as an item next month.
Well, let me ask this so I'm clear. We're talking about the zoning. Or is that what we've brought up on the proposed changes already?
So, for example,
Yeah.
correct. So one of the items addressed today, we have the standard in 8th Avenue about the measuring those structures that have a ground floor use from grade instead of from the design flood. Those are more in the zoning side of things. They affect the design, but they're not pertaining to the design guidebook that we're putting together.
Gotcha. But is that the zoning thing, is that more of an interpretation we're talking about at this stage?
No, those would be the actual amendments to the overlay that we've included in those ordinances. It would it would remove any reference to the guidebook because that is something that we're currently working through. We went for first reading. We didn't receive any comments from the commission.
Right.
But this would be focused solely on moving those zoning amendments forward to second reading and then coming back and dealing with design.
Yeah, I don't, so the question you kind of have is, we're kind of prioritizing the zoning at the moment, and you're asking maybe whether we should prioritize design or look at those and not do one and then the other kind of,
Just as an option, because it's the last two meetings, the board has discussed items that are in the overlay or the 8th Avenue amendments that are more on the zoning side. We've been talking about the guidebook and the need to move that forward, and I will have by the next meeting a timeline hopefully for that. So they may still align, but if we're looking a few months out for the guidebook and some of the design related regulations, that can be separated out from the zoning, which has already gone through first reading. We're not changing any of the content. We're just moving them forward at different time frames. So you would have the requirement for alleyway access in place within a few months, and then we would address the guidebook.
I got you. I think we want to go ahead the way we've been proceeding, but I think, but aren't we ultimately, if the city commission agrees on what we're doing, then aren't we the new ordinance would then refer to a design guidebook that didn't exist at that time?
It does, but what I was suggesting with that was we would remove the design guidebook related regulations out of that and then move forward the other regulations, not changing anything, just postponing those until we have that guidebook prepared. Because we need, like you mentioned, we need a guidebook in place to adopt the regulations as they're currently written.
Right. No, I guess I'm just saying, so would we be removing a reference to design guidebook from the decision-making of the city commission, and then they make a zoning decision, and then after that we go to amend the ordinance to add the guidebook and go back in front of the city commission to do that?
Correct. It would take the language as it's currently proposed and just remove that one section temporarily while we work through the guidebook, and then bring that back to as a separate ordinance.
And then that would have to go through a first and second reading again?
It would.
Well, I don't know. It just seems to me, if we could, I'd rather do it all at the same time, because those first and all that stuff. Well, I guess we have to go back in front of the commission for a first and second reading when we finish the guidebook anyway, right?
No, so we've been through first reading. We'll have the guidebook as a supplement, but it's not something that we're adopting into code. It's a separate document, but the ordinance makes reference to the guidebook as the basis for the design.
Yeah. So can we do that, or do we have? I mean, do we have to have the guidebook finished to have them make the reference to it? Or I kind of always got the impression that was something we could fill in later. And maybe I'm wrong. I could see why I would be wrong, but
I'll add this as a discussion item next month so we can get in more detail on it.
Okay. I mean, my concern is, I thought the beautiful thing about the design guidebook is it puts people on notice of what we're kind of looking. Even though we can't force them to do that, at least there's nothing that exists now.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about the requirements, when they do a technical review, that's just measurements. It's nothing to do with an architectural aesthetic at all. And so, the design guidebook at least provides an architectural aesthetic that people, builders, developers will be aware of, because it'll be in the code that they read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hate to delay that, because that's, in my opinion, the biggest problem we have right now. We have so many new developments that are going to go on, and if we're not giving these people the incentive or an understanding of what the architectural aesthetic is, we're going to wind up just doing this over and over again, where people are coming in and building whatever they want, which they can already, but they don't even know we're looking for something else. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just frustrated by it, I suppose.
And the first reading included reference to the guidebook.
It did, yes.
So if we were to remove that reference, then first reading has to be read again. Yeah. Okay. We're back at 0.
I don't know. Will you know what we're just talking about? So maybe we can talk about it and coming up, and then at the next meeting we can have a better path there. But I was hoping we could do that sooner rather than later. I mean, in a way, I'm more concerned about the design guidebook than I am some of the little zoning requirements. I mean, those are all important because they, in my opinion, cleared up a lot of unmentioned or loopholes that were put in the earlier ordinance that I think have been taken advantage of in some fashion. So I was trying to close the door on that. But the design guidebook, to me, we don't even have one right now. Mm-hmm. Even though the city has on numerous occasions funded putting them together, but they've never been enacted. And so I think that's a huge void that we really have to have that taken care of. So I don't know, what do you all think about if we make a distinction between the guidebook and the zoning changes? I mean, is there...
Well, I think my concern is during the time that our board has been seated and working on this, the commission has 100% turned over, and then half again, So reintroducing and going back to the board time and time again, you're having to re-educate the new board members, and that causes pause again. And the more we put off and wait, the more we have to wait some more to re-educate and reintroduce and restate and reread.
Would we have the ability to keep things as the first reading has been and then be able to come up with a skeleton framework of a guidebook that could then be a living document?
I think that's the intent with the design guidebook, so I think we can start with something maybe a little bit more bare bones. I know that our consultant is working on putting the guidelines together, which is the more technically complex part of the project. I'll check in with her before the next meeting.
Yeah, it doesn't reference guidebook volume 1 dated blah blah blah. It's just very...
Another question about following design is I think we have to define what we mean by the guidebook. I mean, I assume what you're thinking and Tara's thinking of is the guidebook would also be incorporating all the specifications, all the technical aspects that go to building a house, where we may be wanting just to say, hey, look at these pictures.
Yeah, we want a coffee table book.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, serious, but it's part of, so when a developer or a builder looks at what it is they're supposed to, what the code is, they're also referred to a visual aspect.
And that's something they can show their clients.
Right,
because other than an architect, I mean, if I was a home builder, I'm not going to be reading the code and visualizing something in my head. I just don't have that capacity. But if I'm given something visual to look at, I could go, oh, I like this one better than I like that one. Mm-hmm. And that's something to build on.
And I do think as far as within the guidebook, it shouldn't be so specific that it references ordinance 40-7, because then if 40-7 changes, the guidebook is then obsolete. So we want something that's a little more general, more visual, and not quite so.
And so if we look at it, it's a visual guide to help guide people to sort of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the intent is. We are keeping it more general. I mean, there are other books that do this well as well, but we'll have the craftsman style, and we'll point out architectural features that are typically associated with that, but it won't be a specific reference to our code. It'll just say, if you're designing in this style, we want it to look similar to this or otherwise be justified by an architect. So
right, and that's the language that's so key. Mm-hmm. Is we talked about before, is just the basically the onus being, like you just said, to have the architect has to justify why their plans are consistent with that aesthetic. So I think we could, I think we, like I said, I don't think we need to get into too much technical stuff on that, really. It's really just, it would, in my opinion, be, like I said, the aesthetic aspect of, or the counterbalance to what the ordinance is. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for the next month's meeting, can we get some, maybe, and feel free, I'll help you any way I can as far as that goes. I'm sure y'all would, but if we can try to have something maybe put together for next month that we can just kind of look at, even if it's stapled and we can rip pages out. Is that possible?
We can, yep.
All right.
Next month.
Okay. So now I guess we go to 5E, which is the update on the status of city-owned historical resources.
So it looks like on the 17th, we are closing, I believe, the bids for the shuffleboard court demolition and the restoration of the bait shack. So I should have more information for you next meeting on those.
Okay. And I'm sure you said the demolition of something, but we aren't demolishing anything of those, in those situations, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there? And then we're at 5F. That was you, I think, Ms. Heinkel-Smith.
Yes, so Gulf Beaches Historic Museum is inviting the public, and I'd love to see members of the board there to help with gardening on Monday morning. So you just show up on Monday morning with your gloves and your bottle of water and ready to work and sweat a little bit.
I would, but that might be a sunshine violation, so I'm joking, because we'll be out.
I won't talk to you.
Yeah, okay, but we'll also be, we might get sunburned.
It's okay if we occupy the same space, we just can't talk to each other.
No, I know, I'm just trying to be, Okay, that's great. So Monday at what time?
9:30.
All right.
Ish.
Okay, 5G, the road closures.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out from our Public Services Department, on September 13th and November 15th, we will be closing 9th and 10th Avenue for the day. The first event is for Surfers for Autism. The second event is tentatively for the V-Dubs Beach Bash. So November 15th is tentative, September 13th is confirmed. I don't have dates for this yet, but they will be replacing a subaqueous water main from South Paso Grill over to Tierra Verde. I will get information to the board as soon as I have it. There will be quite a few closures and detours, including on 9th Ave. It could be as long as 3 months. I don't have dates or a span of time yet, but I wanted to let you know I've been in contact with Pinellas County and just kind of put that on your radar. I will give you information as soon as I have it.
You said something with Tierra Verde, so it's going to go across?
Correct.
From 9th Avenue, okay.
Yeah. So that'll be probably a multi-month process. I don't have the exact extent of road closures yet, but.
Well, when they say close 9th Avenue, does that mean even where it crosses Paso Grill, or I know you may not have enough detail.
I don't have enough detail at this point, but I believe what they are proposing is a detour 10th to 8th, so it will be closed,
Through Paso Grill, yeah.
Paso Grill, yeah.
Along those lines, they've installed those, I forget what they're called, but those concrete barriers south of 9th. I don't know if they're finished, but they did almost all of them one day, just a couple days ago. So that's been waited for. Hello, Kristen.
Hi.
What's going on?
Miss Lynn had found these nice historic maps of the Corey Avenue area, and she wanted to share with you those, and I just wanted to pass them out before you left.
Okay.
Since you didn't have them for her presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
It's fun to look at them.
Yes, I love maps.
Thank you. We weren't sure of time frame, right, Lynn? No time frame? No.
Did you want us to color these and bring them back next month?
It's just like.
But I do like looking at the old street names and.
Well, there is a date on here. I mean, that's not what's it, but it refers to, oh, here's the bottom, 1956, so this is at least that old. Bottom right, and up here, middle left, it says, this area is a multi-million-dollar resort development to be opened December 1956.
Yeah, but that's not when the map was done.
Yeah, it would have to be done before then. That's what I'm saying. It's at least previous to 1956. Because actually it says Gulf of Mexico, which that means.
Well, it's also got avenues on it, which is something that happened after the 70s.
Don't start.
Wheeler Street.
I didn't say anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anything else that we have here? All right. Seeing there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn the meeting then. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.